Welcome to Know His Love Stories, where we listen to the voice of the Father through his children. Today's story comes to us from Nathan. He was born in Kansas and spent most of his life in Houston. He is a financial planner with his brother-in-law. He's married to the extraordinary Liv Harrison, and they have 2 children. This is a Know His Love story.
Does anybody ever actually feel like worthy of God's love? It's for me, I feel like that's an ongoing all the time, but like periods where I felt like an intense feeling of unworthiness, or even like maybe, I've never really doubted God's love. I've doubted why he would take the time to love me, if that makes sense. Um, despite what my wife often posts on Facebook, I am not the saint that she claims I am, and I make a lot of mistakes all the time. But they're very early on in my life, I kind of got wrapped up into some very sinful behaviors that followed me into my marriage, and I can remember very distinctly, Olivia and I were, high school sweethearts. We'd done all the marriage prep, we'd done everything. And here we were, I guess it was just a few, probably like 3 years after the birth of our son. And she was questioning if she even knew who I was, because the sin had become so wrapped in that. And I think for people, we make these cute references like the hands and feet of Christ, or me or you. But like, I think also a lot of times we manifest God into people. I still am a human, so don't hold me up to like I'm not God. I didn't like don't blame God for me, right? And so I remember when Olivia, we had gotten to a point where it was one of the rockiest parts of our marriage, and I remember grabbing a rosary and going to an adoration chapel and literally laying before the Eucharist, bawling, just saying, I'm so sorry. What can I do? I know I don't deserve to be coming to you. I've been, having that kind of like just absolute moment of true repentance. And of course, I've done a lot of bad things since then, right? Kind of already broke all those rules. I told God, I'm going to do this if you just do, but what I found so compelling about that moment is I find when I'm the most unworthy is when I'm the most called to God. And it's almost like, how do you go to an all-powerful being, right? And say, hey, I know you're probably busy right now in Afghanistan, but like, I messed up a lot and I need you to forgive me, and have the audacity to believe that, number one, he cares, right? That to me is like the boldest sign of humility, is to say, hey, God, I'm here. I know I'm not worthy, right? And I think in that unworthiness, a lot of times it brings me to a true appreciation of what the word humility is, rather than and I think that's the juxtaposition between sin and saving is sin is humiliation and saving is humility. Right. And so I find that to be just a huge impact for me personally. So, I could talk forever about a lot of things, but, that's kind of generally where I was in those moments. I do feel unworthy pretty often, but when I really make giant mistakes, I'm like, are you sure it's unconditional, God? You positive? Like, let me test you out. And then I go read like things like Jonah, and I'm like, well, he did bring Jonah back, and David seems worse than me. So, we're going to, so that's why I love the Old Testament. Those guys were the worst, so within the last few years, I had a moment where, we always talk about the only person, quote unquote, that we can depend on is God. Right. And, while I'm sure my parents tried their best and had tried to provide unconditional love, I would tell you that I think all human beings struggle with the concept of truly unconditional love, and also feeling conditioned love from others, right? And so there was a time in the last few years that I truly felt completely alone. And literally the only thing that helped me feel love was knowing that God has been there, right? And so it was becoming very personal, like, God, tell me I'm not crazy. God, tell me that, these people that are saying these things or these actions that are going on, this isn't who this person is, or this isn't what the situation is. And when you feel, I think the absence of God is that hope being gone, right? And as we talk about that, again, it's really cute, faith, hope, and love. But like, when you have no hope, I don't think we really don't get that, right? And I feel like that's where God always came back to me to say, I love you. I accept you exactly where you're at. The people that are letting you down are gonna come back. You just have to have hope. You got to give me time with them too, and I'm gonna love you until they're ready to love you the appropriate and correct way, right? And so I think for me, those circumstances are, I struggle a lot with feeling certain things and then recognizing, but that's not okay. Like, for example, and in these moments when I didn't feel loved, I was like, logically, I know that our relationship with God is there. But right now I don't feel anything from anybody here on earth to give me that. And as if someone listens to that, they're like, well, I had no idea. Or if you just told me, that's what doesn't make sense about us as humans. We know the logic. Hey, call Father Matthew up and say, Father Matthew, I just feel so isolated and so alone. Nobody loves me. And you'll be like, no, Nathan, I love you. If no one else says, I listen, whatever it might be. But we don't do that, right? And so we often force that condition onto others, and we don't even make them aware that we have told them and they have told us without even having a conversation that you don't like me, I'm not worthy of your presence, and everything that you've done wrong to me, I deserve, right? And so for me in those circumstances, I was able to go back to God. In particular, I know a lot of people like the divine mercy image because, it's this whole concept of mercy. For me, it's the Jesus, I trust in you. And when I get to that moment, it's like, God, I want to do some pretty horrible stuff to these people who have hurt me, right? I know that's wrong. So I'm going to trust in you. But man, is it hard. And, and I constantly reflect back in that particular circumstance where the reason that I say that relationship was personal was I didn't hear anything or feel anything, but I could sense, like, Nathan, what you want to do is completely humanly reasonable. I know you hear those things about the kingdom is greater and the afterlife is better. And I said, but I need you to hear me. I'm judging you not on what those people have done, but what you have done. So please, as painful as this is, we're going to get there. And when we get there, you're going to be so happy you didn't make all these bad choices. And I personally can vouch for you that I've gone through every bit of pain you've ever gone through, magnified by trillions. So please just trust in me, right? So I think that ultimately is where I find like that, I don't know, not like tangible, like feeling of like a personal, like almost like the Eucharist, but like obviously I'm not consuming the Eucharist in that moment, but like you really feel like, okay, this is real. Like this is like a true relationship, not like just something that we kind of talk about, So I don't know if that answers the question, but that to me is kind of where I found that personal piece is again, it's usually in your darkest moments that I feel that God, I think of it like as a parent of a young child, you watch the kid tottering along the swimming pool, but you don't want to be like too overprotective, but you're always within an arm's reach. And literally until the moment that they're about to face plant into the water, you don't reach out and grab them, but then you're like, oh, you're there the whole time. I think that's a lot of what God does. He's like, okay, let's see if I need to intervene. Let's see if I need to intervene. Nope, I'm good. He made it this time, or nope. Okay, we got to go in, so to me, being the beloved son of God is to be an authentic man and to be in my best and truest form, what God designed as a man, because there's so many sons that are loved, but the word beloved means a little something extra. And to me, I think the reason that Jesus called, some of his disciples his beloved was because they were special. And I think they were special because of their devotion. And to me, specifically in that gender specific title of beloved son, I believe that my job is to show that there are good men in this world, that not every man that you encounter is bad or a misogynist or a manipulator. And there are so many sons that do not live up to that title. I really struggle with emotion. I do not usually quote unquote feel like a lot of normal people, but like right now, like I have this feeling of like almost tears, like, as I'm talking about God and like my relationship with him, or like, if you ever give it, I'm sure this has happened to you before, but like the goosebumps you get when you're giving something, or, you're proclaiming the truth, like that gift of like, I'm right there with you. You are spot on. Like, to me, that's the favorite gift, right? Like, I mean, I'd love to say it was, an amazing wife, which I have. I'd love to say it's my children, which I have, but like selfishly, it's that like individual silent, like as we talk about with Moses, like that whisper of emotion that like is so hard for me to get and feel and understand. But when I feel that, I'm like, as I've gotten older, I've recognized that really is a gift, because it is something that is so hard for me to connect to normally. And so when I do get to experience that, I'm really thankful that God has given me what I would call a renewed heart that's open, rather than that heart of stone that I've created, because it's a lot easier to get through life without thinking or feeling those emotions. God loves you so much, he's put good in this world for you to encounter. And he loves you so much, he's given you gifts that the world needs to encounter. And if you don't accept and understand and feel that love from God, it's okay. It's natural to feel that way, but it's not the truth. And the truth is not always easy to accept. And I would call you, if you're doubting or you're struggling or you're in that unbelief, to recognize that God is not, there's not a test with a score. God is looking for an A in effort, not an A in perfection. And you do provide that effort, and I see it. And don't ever let go of that, even in your darkest moments.
Thank you for listening to Nathan's story. I would love to share your story as well. Please connect with us on social media or by clicking on the Join Us link at knowHis.love.